Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another video on Starseed Academy. My name is Jenny. Today I want to talk with you about a lot of things that are happening in the headlines, mainly the food shortages, which seem to be like the biggest concern going on right now. I know there's a lot of things happening that are concerning in the collective consciousness right now, but it is important for us to address them. Obviously, we don't want to feed it so much energy that we make it bigger, that we feed it. But we do want to understand always what's going on in the main timeline of humanity, and that is the collective consciousness. So I want to talk about that today. We're talking about the food shortages. We're going to talk about CERN. We're going to talk about like a higher perspective of the New World Order, like what they're up to and what that's creating for us. Because it has effects in the light and in the dark. And so we're going to get a more of a whole kind of perspective of that. Okay, so before we jump into today's video, please remember to subscribe to this channel for new videos here every week on Sunday. Follow me on Instagram for different kinds of content, original content there. And then also like this video and share it so that other people can find this information. And that's really helpful to the channel. So thank you so much. Okay, so I want to start actually with something that I sent out to my email list. Okay, so I send out weekly energy reports every Monday, and something that came through really connects to this video. And so I just want to share like a little snippet of some of the stuff that I shared with them for the weekly energy report. Now they received this a week ago, so if you want to get ahead of these energies that are hitting the planet and what's going on and have a heads up and feel a little more prepared, sign up in the link below for the weekly energy reports and you receive them right to your inbox every single week. So this week I shared a vision that I had, and it was really quite like biblical almost. Like it was almost like something that like maybe a creature you would see in Revelations, if you're familiar with the Bible at all. It was very like prophetic and very symbolic too. So I saw this vision of a three-headed snake, and this three-headed snake reared up, and each one of the heads started attacking the other until it killed itself, and then it kind of fell over. And what I received when I received like visual messages through like clairvoyance, I also generally receive the claircognizant download of what it means. Or, you know, all of your psychic gifts are connected. So also clairaudience, all of that. So what it symbolized was that these three heads stood for the elites, the politicians, and the corporate heads, and that their greed, their need to be in control, their constant desire for just more was going to be their own undoing. And I think that I actually shared in the weekly energy report before that, I'm just remembering this now, that I shared that there were like cracks forming in the elites, you could say, in the secret societies, where they're not very good at working together and they're starting to almost like turn on each other, and this was going to be their own undoing. That greed, that selfishness, that no, it's just got to be for me. Because of that, like because of these, I would just call them dark forces, I guess, because it involves like quite a bit. Like there's shadow beings, there's reptilians, there's humans, there's all kinds of different darker beings that are working together that create these kinds of problems on Earth and strive for the control over humanity. But their downfall is that they can't work together, like ever. And that's a huge strength for us, because us as light workers, starseeds, and awakening souls, we can really come together. And that's why we're always talking about oneness and unity. It's so important that we rise up together to take the control back. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that coming up. But basically, there's just so much happening energetically and spiritually in 3D Earth, which is that main timeline of the collective consciousness. And so things like war, stock market crashes, food shortages, which we'll talk about later, politicians trying to take over like healthcare, which we've seen in many ways, COVID, Roe versus Wade. Also the CERN experiments, where they're trying to bring open portals and bring through dark matter, mess up timelines, bring us onto a timeline that's more where we're more docile and easy to control. There's a lot that's going on, but basically all of this stimulation, all of these headlines, they are all of this chaos. It's meant to send you into overwhelm. Okay, it's actually strategically timed. Sometimes it just feels like one worldwide event after another, but it's like a strategy that they're using. It is timed to keep us in a state of chaos, fear, but especially separation, because we are weak when we are separated from one another, and we are weak when we are in fear. And so all of this is just one big game. And like as you move down your spiritual path, maybe go down a few rabbit holes while you're there, you really start to see how ridiculous it starts to get. Really ridiculous. Like, and you wonder how much more obvious does it need to be for people to see it? Like maybe people that aren't quite seeing it yet, seeing the fact that the news is mainstream media, and the news and all of that is a story, a stage, a play, and it is all stage, and it's all just for this larger game of control. So I know to you and I, it seems ridiculous. Like, what's going to be next? Like, since 2020, it's just one worldwide issue after another. But they do that to help people. They want people to feel overwhelmed. They want people to feel out of control, basically. So let's talk a little bit about the food shortages. So over the last 2 years, I think roughly it's 2 years, and you can research this, and you should research these things. Basically, the elites have been buying up farmland like crazy. Like, what does Bill Gates need with so much farmland? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And they're not using it to farm, food in any way. But he's not the only one. There were quite a few elites, and elites are like billionaires, corporate heads, that kind of thing. They're buying up all of this farmland, right? And over they've been planning this. That's what I mean. They plan these things for years beforehand. They were planning for COVID far before they released it. And you can research that as well. But anyway, so they're buying up farmland. They are also, over the last 2 years, maybe 3, have been blowing up, like the explosions that have been happening, and fires, mostly like fires and explosions that have been happening at food warehouses and food factories is unprecedented. It went from like such a small percentage of incidences to like a ridiculous amount that it's very obvious. These things are very obvious. It's right in your face when you look it up. So the combination of buying up this farmland, of blowing up all of these factories and food warehouses all around the world, coupled with a lot of other things that they're doing, to stop trade, the war, all kinds of things. And it's all pieces that they put together to create a larger worldwide effect. And then that worldwide effect, whatever it may be, whatever it is that week, is designed to put us into fear, separation, competition, and all of that. So they try to control us through things like the medical system, finances, obviously, stock market crashes, the dollar, the rates, housing market. That's been ridiculous since probably a lot of this since 2020, and I'm going to talk about the times and the importance of 2020 to 2024 coming up. But like, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing all these things that I'm talking about literally started in 2020, like, the buying up the farmland and the food warehouses and factories, and then the housing market going totally insane. Like, why did that happen? Like, there's just so much that they control, and it's way too much of a coincidence. Like, you can't just no. And then so now with food shortages, that's just another essential thing. Like, they're trying to take away these are all essential things: your money, your finances, your home, your roof over your head, your food. Like, these are the workforce. Like, after COVID, and I have to spell that because how obvious that that's censored. Like, why would it be censored? It's just so obvious when you really zoom out and look at it. Like, you can't even say that word without being censored to the point of like losing, having things taken down, or even losing your accounts. Why? If it was so innocent, right? So basically, all this to say that dark agendas are real. They absolutely are real, but you don't have to live in the rabbit hole to get the information that you need. And you shouldn't, right? And I know that as people first experience a spiritual awakening, they go through this time period of living in these rabbit holes of information where, you've been red pilled and you're down there in the conspiracy, which is so much truth, but it also is quite exaggerative. And it's a dark place to be and live. And when you only live there, or you live there too much of the time, you end up focusing on it so much, and you're this master creator. And so then you start to create more of it, and then everywhere you look, you're looking for it, and you're actually creating it by doing that. So we do want to always remain, if you can, bring yourself up to neutral, find balance where you can see how the shadows and the light interplay together. And we are going to talk about like a higher perspective of how these things can actually benefit us. But you really have to kind of get out of the anger to be able to see that. And at the beginning of a spiritual awakening, that's hard because it's all about the anger. People move into like the fourth dimension before the fifth. And the fourth dimension is all about rising up in anger, and it's sacred anger, but it is anger, rising up in this sacred anger and realizing, once you realize that everything's been a lie and that you've been so controlled and that they are controlling like humans like sheep, you get very, very angry, and that's so normal. But as you move through that phase, stick with it, continue to meditate, continue to, we all have psychic gifts, but if you practice them, continue to like ask your team, your guides, for the answers, continue to channel, continue to share with people what's coming up for you, share where you're at. We all have a piece of the puzzle, and it's really important that we all are not afraid to share and talk about what we're receiving and what's going on. But my hope for you is that you find a way out of that darkness. And then it's not that you can't ever research. Like today, I've said multiple times already, you should research these things, but then just stay balanced, right? Don't dive deeply down the rabbit hole and not come back out for days. Go in to get the information that you need and make sure, like, use your intuition to feel if it's truth. Actually, what I do is I set the intention. I actually don't really do any research much anymore because I really like to rely on my channel, like my channel of claircognizance, bringing through the information from my team. I go to the Council for Humanity, which works with the Galactic Federation of Light. So you can find a source outside of, humanity that feels a little bit more clear and more pure. But if you do want to research these things, for facts and dates and stuff, it's really helpful. But like I said, please just find balance. Like when you're going in, pull yourself back out for a time before you go back in again. Okay. So basically you can set the intention for what you need, and then that information will almost find its way to you as well. You probably don't even need to go searching, but again, just don't live in that place. So these dark agendas have steps, like they roll them out in steps. And I would say that 2020 and COVID was really the beginning of a big New World Order move. And nothing's been the same since 2020. And I know that you can see that too. And all the things that we were talking about, the career, the workplace, the medical systems, traveling, the laws, the housing market, food, just so much, right? So, but before that, there were already lots of dark agendas in place. So you've probably heard of MK Ultra, and I hope none of these words get me flagged, so I won't say them too many times. And that was, I think that started in the 70s. I could be wrong. You could research that and see, but it started like decades ago anyway. And it basically brainwashes people to a point of being empty, where there's almost like not much left within them, and then they become puppets. And they use celebrities for this, they use politicians for this, they use anybody that's really in the public limelight to be their puppet and say and do and act how they want them to, because it furthers the narrative. And then people are seeing all of these like celebrities that they love so much and worship and trust saying, oh, you should go get your jab, your vaccine, and it's great and it's wonderful. And then they're like, oh my God, yeah, absolutely. If they're doing it, I'm doing it. Lo and behold, to find out now, not even a year later, that it doesn't work, it's not necessary, and it might actually cause real problems down the line. But see how they do that. They get all these puppets puppeting the same message. Other New World Order like agendas and stuff that has been rolled out, big ones would be like how our food has become not food anymore. it's all just so toxic. Like anything other than the produce section, which is also drenched in like pesticides and GMO, but anything in the center of the grocery store, especially those center aisles, that's not food. Like stay out of there and try to just stay on the outer edges and get your produce and your, whatever your diet. If you're having meat, make sure it's organic. And I'm a vegetarian, but I enjoy eggs, and I always try to get them. If I can't get them locally, then I want to get them, like like farm raised, no cages, free range, organic, friendly, like where somebody's going in and checking on these places and making sure that there's no, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so, it's not even food anymore, the way that it's a factory. It's, it's all just become fast food, so full of chemicals and preservatives. It's so bad for you. It's not nutritious. And all of this is, how is that an agenda? Well, all of that just clogs your arteries, clogs your pineal gland, which is your spiritual doorway in your brain where you can connect. It just like, it numbs us in a way, in our senses. Like if I eat a bunch of junk food, which I mean, it's not like I never do it. I'm human, right? Balance. But it's so hard to connect. It's so hard to really form a connection and be a clear channel to meditate, to receive divine messages. It all brings you down because the frequency is so low. So that's definitely a part of what they're doing, as well as, big pharma and the Western medical institutes taking over anything that was natural, like from like the tribal medicine woman to naturopathy to doulas to just taking all of that away and making everything so just toxic, right? It's just so it's all just pills and things for the symptoms, and it's never treating the actual cause. And why? Like, why is it built like that? So that we stay being these money bags. We're just paying so much. We just keep going back for more, for more. We give up our power when we don't take our health into our own hands. And that's exactly what they want. This is all about giving up power. And then, of course, you probably know like fluoride, chemtrails, again, pineal gland. And then obviously a huge one, worldwide event, war, which causes stock market crashes and food shortages. And war, like people unnecessarily losing their homes, their loved ones, their safety. It shakes the whole world, especially the ones who are affected directly. So anyway, so COVID, it bred into society in a new, really potent way, the biggest way that we've seen yet. It was so potent, bred in fear and separation. And it gave these elites, these politicians, the control over our health system. Suddenly politicians became doctors. And suddenly the health system is so mixed up with politics. And it's like, it should be separate. It should be separate, but they, especially like in countries like Canada, they've taken COVID and politicized it to the point where they can use it to serve themselves. It's not about health. It's not about getting better. It's not about really finding solutions. It's about how can we take control? How can we use it to serve us? And Justin Trudeau is a prime example of that. And then another way that politicians try to control our health is something new with the whole Roe versus Wade. Like, why is that a political decision at all? That should be in healthcare only. So basically, if the elites are the billionaires, right, the CEOs, the corporate heads, and all of that, they are the ones behind these politicians. And again, these are those puppets that we're talking about. Not necessarily saying that Justin Trudeau has been MK Ultra'd, but he is a puppet. He might feel like he's a big dog, but he's not. He is just a puppet on a string to a darker pyramid of control. And at the top are these off-world shadow beings. And as you get closer, they become on-world, but it's still a lot of galactic influence through dark Greys, reptilians. And remember, just because I say that, I would never say that all Greys or all reptilians are dark, because that's not true. It's just like humans. Some are really bad. Some are amazing. So it's not about a species or a star nation and judging them as a whole. It's about the soul, the individual choices within that. But regardless, that is what's happening on Earth here. So basically, if you think about all of this, if the newest thing right now is food shortages and we just zero in on that, what would that create? So that would create more fear, right? And then it would create competition. Like, do you remember the whole toilet paper scandal of 2020 where people were fighting in the aisles over the last roll of toilet paper? Can you imagine if it was food? I mean, that's perfect. If we turn on each other, if we're threatened to the point of this competition with each other, then we are so busy fighting amongst ourselves that we aren't paying attention to these heads of state and these politicians and elites and billionaires and these beings that are truly running the show of 3D. And then they get away with so much behind the scenes. We're not paying attention to what are they passing through as laws, and it's just all a game, and it's just crazy. And the harder that they push, the more they do expose themselves, though. Because, like I was saying, how ridiculous is it, though? It's so ridiculous now to you if you've been on this path for a while and you consider yourself like, a researched person and an awakened person, awakening on we're not awakened, we're not enlightened, but we're on the journey and we are becoming more and more every day. And if you consider yourself that, then it's honestly just so ridiculous. It's like, how much more obvious can you get? And how do other people not see it yet? And it can make you really frustrated and really angry. And so again, don't turn on your fellow man. It's not their fault. Don't call them sheeple. Don't call them stupid or why can't you wake up? They are deeply plugged into a system that is designed to keep them asleep. Just because you have something that has been sparked within you that has awakened you now doesn't mean that they won't also awaken, but they're waiting for their specific trigger. We don't all wake up at once. We wake up in waves, and there's a reason for that, because there has to be support systems in place for the new waves to awaken. You are that support system. So these dark games that are happening in the world, they may look like one worldwide event after another. They are one worldwide event after the other. They are designed to create separation, but they are actually fueling the mass spiritual awakening, mass worldwide spiritual awakening that is happening in waves. Okay, they think that what they're doing is only serving their own dark purposes, but truly this is a divine plan. That's the higher perspective, and that's where the hope comes in. And that's where you see we are not helpless at all. Everything is actually pretty much going according to plan. And I'm going to talk about that with the years that we were talking about in a second. So just stay with me. Even don't let this anger you. Don't let this trigger you. Or if it does, that's okay. It is a larger plan. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. I certainly don't agree with it. And that doesn't mean I go along with it, like blindly or that I condone any of it. I'm just saying what it's doing, the side effect is that it's triggering a mass spiritual awakening. So this blatant, obvious manipulation, which started in 2020 with COVID, like the really obvious, it sparks a fire in people that can see through the games, right? Like us. And then we are moved into action. Like there were so many amazing peaceful protests, so many amazing people that were sitting on the fence of their own spirituality, or maybe even fully in the spiritual closet, and COVID happened and they came blasting out of that closet full force, ready to help. And it's almost like they needed that little push. And it's funny how that works, isn't it? But that's what a dark night of the soul does. It pushes you into the evolution, into the transformation that is your destiny. So we saw the proof of this, what we're talking about with COVID. Oh, I just said it, but anyway. The lies, the manipulation, the extreme censorship that happened, like how I just said it and was worried, like all of this crazy censorship that is never I don't think that's, I mean, maybe censorship obviously was happening, but not to this degree of like, they don't even try to hide it. The harsh new laws, all of these laws, the control, the separation of the classes of people. That was a big one. That was so blatant and obvious, the separation that they were trying to turn one on the other, like if you've been V'd or if you haven't been V'd, and then turn on each other and fight. But no, the spiritual awakening people saw through that, and they rose up together. And there were so many beautiful protests, posts, videos, blogs, content being created everywhere where people were like showing that they loved each other. We won't be separated. Doesn't matter what medical choice this person's chosen. I love them. They are my brother. They are my sister. Stop trying to separate us. Stop the hate. And like also posting on like the politicians like Instagram pages. Like if you go, I'm Canadian, so I'm always looking at like Canadian, Singh and Trudeau have all of these comments all over their posts that are like, why, you should be ashamed of yourself. We see your game. Stop trying to separate us. Like, wow, that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. That maybe wouldn't have even happened before 2020. This is what I mean. All of a sudden, this huge awakening that they probably weren't expecting, their actions created this beautiful thing. So that's amazing for us. And that's important to see that, so that we don't get feeling hopeless and then feeding them with that hopeless frequency. We are not hopeless. We are so strong. This is working out. It truly is divinely orchestrated. So the separation of the classes of people especially, but all of those things that we just said that happened in 2020 sparked a first level awakening in people all around the world. And you can't go backwards once you experience that first level of awakening. You're only going to continue forwards. You can't unsee something. You can't unlearn something. They will now be forever changed. Okay. So each new step like that is unrolled by the New World Order agenda, with each new step, more people will be activated, because the signs of the end times, if we want to call it that, because it is the end times of this society, the old earth, it's the end of the old earth. So these signs of the end times, they are designed to be triggers. They were always designed to trigger and awaken you. And they are triggering and awakening light warriors, earth angels, galactic ambassadors, healers, teachers, you. All of these, you're one of those or something else just as divine, rainbow warriors, you know, just so many beautiful like divine archetypes that are rising up now. These things were always designed, always kind of even put into your blueprint or into your soul contract as being that trigger to awaken you. And then all of a sudden, one of those things has awakened you, or you probably wouldn't be watching this video. So just know that as frustrating as it is to see another worldwide event of darkness after another, it's triggering and awakening the next wave, okay? And the next wave, and the next wave, until everyone is on board, or the amount of people that came here with that goodness in their soul have finally awakened. Okay, so let's talk about those years now, from 2020 to 2024. That is the crumbling, okay? So it started with a bang in 2020. It's supposed to continue until 2024. Supposed to, meaning that timelines are flexible, but this is continually what I've been receiving. For the 2020 to 2024 is the crumbling, okay? After that, so that's the destruction of the old world. And that's the three-headed snake, how it's turning on itself, how it's exposing itself, how it's waking people up because of its obvious manipulation. They're ruining themselves, which is wonderful. After that 4-year period is the rebuild, okay? And when people finally begin to unite on a worldwide scale, creating the first stages of the organized society of the new earth. Okay, so let me just read that line to you again. 2020 to 2024 is the crumbling. After that, it's the rebuild, as people finally begin to unite on a worldwide scale, creating the first stages of the organized society of New Earth, a place of freedom, equality, sharing resources, community, and support. We are those first stages of the organized society of the New Earth. That's you, that's me, that's what we're starting to try to visualize now and see and want. The first thing is to know what we want, through contrast of receiving what we didn't want and what's not working, and all of that has to crumble. All of that has to die off, break down, disintegrate, like the old society, because the old society is built on greed, money, power. It's led by politicians, big pharma, religious leaders, billionaire elites, secret societies, and a dark shadow influence. Like, its time is up. We can't build on that foundation. It's so toxic. It needs to go so that we can start from fresh. And And we are in the destruction phase right now. So it's really important for you to look ahead in hope. Okay, so that you, at the kind of society that we will have, the hope of this new earth, the hope, the desire, the starting to visualize what you want and seeing all these people being sparked into their awakening around you. It's so beautiful. And don't fall too far into the grief of the old society that's falling away. Like, it's understandable to feel scared or to feel sad about some things that you're losing, but don't let yourself go too far into that grief. Don't cling to it. Don't create energetic cords of attachment to it, because that old society is falling away. It's toxic. It has to go. Look ahead instead of focusing on the destruction in front of you, which can be a lot of anxiety, overwhelm, chaos, and then it feeds them. Look ahead. Try to look ahead to what we are going to create, what you are a part of. It's so huge, like on this global scale, and within just even our Milky Way universe, it's so important. It's so big what's happening on Earth. It's being like monitored. It's inspiring other planets and star nations. It's really something. And basically what it is that Earth is slowly being reclaimed by a spiritual rebellion. And you are one of those rebel leaders. And that spiritual rebellion, we have freedom at our core, a vision of true health and balance for the earth and her children. So don't give up. We're so close, and more are awakening every single day. So lean into that hope, lean into what's to come, the excitement of what's to come. See the political games that are going on and the worldwide events and all of this for exactly what it is. It's a catalyst for the awakening of the next wave, for the mass awakening that's been prophesied time and time again of New Earth, the mass awakening of the spiritual New Earth and the Rainbow Warriors. So I have a couple of more points here that I want to share with you. I'm just turning my page on my notebook. Bear with me. Okay, so basically, if you're worried about food shortages, something that you can do that's tangible, other than the things that we've talked about, is that you can slowly stock up on non-perishables. I mean, obviously, that's not going to be a bad thing. We should all have 30 days worth anyway in our cupboards, in our pantries, in our freezers, maybe. But of like, imagine like we've had here before, like storms that last 5 days with no power. Like, you should always be prepared for just stuff that's going to happen anyway. But if these food shortages are going to come to a head and get really severe, then prepare yourselves, but don't do it out of fear. Do it out of excitement. Like, I know that sounds weird. Like, how can you get excited about that? But in a way, it is kind of exciting, because it's all just signs that this old civilization, this old society of darkness is dying. And so it's okay to live like a rebel, a spiritual rebel leader, where you're kind of a little bit underground and living off of your supplies. Kind of let that excite you. You know, you are the main character in this crazy movie that's happening right now. And it's so important that you stay hopeful and brave and courageous. So anyway, you can slowly stock up on non-perishables. You can learn how to make preserves. I don't know how to do that. Bread, learn how to make bread. And then just like simple ingredient dishes, so that you're not, just having to eat out of cans. Like, how did they do it before? When they had no power and no fridge, they do things with salt, I guess, and vinegar, and there's lots of ways to preserve stuff. I certainly don't know how, but I'll be looking into it as well. And I really think that at least 30 days worth of food and water is essential. So because again, the costs are going to continue to rise on things like gas, food, housing, until there's a break. And there's this huge separation between the haves and the have-nots, the people that can afford it and can't afford it. Just like with COVID, when they did these class separations, they're trying to separate people so that they get angry at each other and turn on each other. It's really important for us not to do that. That being said, if you have somebody in your life that can't afford to stock up for 30 days worth, but you can, maybe you think about being generous and helping them with that. That is a New Earth leader that I want to be. So we can prepare, and then we can rise above, remembering that the breaks and the cracks in society are how the light gets in. Like all of these cracks and breaks that are happening are triggering sparks of spiritual awakening. The spark of awakening happens the majority of time during distress, right? Like for some reason, that's how we learn during dark nights of the soul. You can look at your own personal journey and see that you made the biggest steps when you were probably way down in the pits of despair, myself included. Like when you got nothing left to lose, suddenly you make the shift and you make the change. We're being set up for the greatest awakening that we've ever seen, ever here on earth. And that's why the hashtag, the Great Awakening, is also censored. Why would that be censored, right? So it's just so ridiculous and so funny. Like, let's try to laugh at it. Let's, we see these worldwide events for what they are. Keep them coming, because you're only destroying yourselves. Like that three-headed snake, they will destroy themselves. They are outing themselves. They are so obvious that they're waking people up. One worldwide event after another that is meant to create like chaos and separation of the people is creating the awakening. It is what is creating the awakening. And again, that doesn't mean that I condone or look highly or positively on things like, oh my gosh, like war, what's happening in the Ukraine and all of that. It is heart-wrenching. It is heartbreaking. Unfortunately, these kinds of things are the symptoms of a society that is crumbling. And we need to do our very best to support the people. Do everything that you can to be of support. If that means your finances or your time or your efforts, if there's a way that you can be a peaceful protester, if you resonate with that, or raising funds, or just whatever you can do to support the people. Know that people that get caught in like war-torn areas, or in situations like the things we've been talking about, they are not the problem. It's not about them. It's like, you can't be like, oh, well, I hate Russian people. It's not the people. It's not the people. It's the leaders. And you can't say that about the Ukraine either. Just remember that the people are the new citizens of the new earth, and they will probably be sparked into an awakening by what's happening to them too. So have compassion above all, have love above all, lean into the oneness and the unity. That's our strength that the darkness doesn't have. They can't work together. We can work together. So never shun or judge anyone else. They're all coming into their awakening as their time for their wave of awakening hits, and it's all timed. So now you are probably being called into your earth mission. Maybe you call it your soul purpose, where your spiritual gifts, these soul nudges, are happening, and they're pushing you to step out of the spiritual closet and support the newly awakened people. They need our support. We need all of the energy healers, the channelers, the spiritual leaders, the writers, everything. We need that beautiful, strong spiritual community of leaders. We need the farmers. We need everything to rebuild our society. Everybody has a place. There's a spot for everyone. So really start viewing people as the citizens of the new earth, as you yourself are. Answer the call. If your soul is calling you to step up and lead, it's because we need you, because there's going to be more and more and more waves of awakening. We can't do it all. We need more. We need more leaders, healers, teachers. So you are being called. Answer the call. Answer your soul nudges. If you want help with that, please come to me. I have so many ways that I can help you with that. And you can also look, in the links below of ways to work with me. We could get you a breakthrough reading where your team can reveal to you what your purpose is here, what your soul gifts are, what the next step is, how to get on your highest timeline, how to be of service to others. It's all just waiting for you, but it's up to you to take that step. So anyway, I hope that this video was filled with hope for you, even though we were talking about some dark things, and that you feel inspired going forward, and that you can look at the events of the world with less fear. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to work with me, again, check out the links. If you want to be a part of the membership group, which is this beautiful growing group where we get together every single week and talk about stuff like this, we do events, we do everything. Then check out that also, the membership in the link below. I was talking a lot about the weekly energy reports that I send out, the emails that everyone receives on Mondays. They're free. I was talking about this with them a week ago. So if you want to kind of get ahead on this information, sign up for that weekly energy report. You'll see that also in the links below. Other than that, thank you so much. Please remember to share this video. I would really love that if you would share it, subscribe to my channel here for new videos every Sunday. And other than that, I guess I just want to remind you to listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. Thank you, beautiful star seeds. Have a wonderful day. Bye.